This week we're reading The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo, otherwise known as It's Kind of Fibrous.
Hi readers, I'm Jordan.
And I'm Katie.
And welcome to Not Another Heroine Season 2, the podcast where we break down the best and worst fictional heroines of any genre. Because that's what we do now.
Want to see what's next on our TBR list? Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Instagram for a sneak peek at upcoming content or to help us pick our next book. We're finally talking about this fucking book.
We're talking about this book in the past, though, readers. So
That is true.
Katie does not have a little human yet, but
Nope.
we wanted to follow through on our promise to do The Familiar.
I am still in the throes of late pregnancy, which, if you have ever been with child, is
What century are you from? With child? I think you you took a step too far into The Familiar.
Going like full back in the past. But yeah, I'm miserable, and late pregnancy is probably the single least fun part of pregnancy.
Oh my goodness.
But it's fine.
For our readers who are pregnant, are about to be pregnant, or already have kids, you are a miracle to the planet.
Jordan's like, no, thank you. Keep that on that side of the table.
Please and thank you.
Honestly, I feel it though, because I just feel like I can't sleep. I can't walk, but it's fine.
It will
the miracle of childbirth.
It will all be worth it, or so I hear.
Yeah, allegedly. We'll see. But this book is also allegedly worth it, but a bit heavy.
Yeah, it's interesting that we're talking about miracles, though, because that is a theme of The Familiar, where it's very unique approach to a magic system and a setting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even... Yeah. Do we just start at the very beginning? And
I don't know. I almost feel like we need to caveat it a little bit, because like I enjoyed this book. It was slow at the beginning, but then it kind of like sped up, but then towards the end it kind of got a little again. But
I feel like I took my brain to Whole Foods with this book.
Yeah, like eating like quinoa and kale, where you're like, I'm not sure I'm enjoying this, but I know my body is.
Yeah, like it's good for me and I will feel better after it's done. However, it's a little fibrous.
Honestly, okay, that is the best way to describe this book. It's fibrous. You have to chew for a really long time.
Yes, you do.
Did you ever watch Midnight Mass on Netflix?
Yes, excellent.
Yeah, this feels like that.
Same kind of dark overtone. Like it's kind of like a feeling of ominous the entire time,
where you're like, there's something not right with what's going on.
Yeah, and you keep waiting for like the ball to drop, but it never really does.
Because I was expecting the main guy, Saint Angel or whatever, for his backstory to be a little bit more not noxious, not notorious. I don't know what word I'm looking. Insidious? There we go.
Yeah.
Like a little bit more like vampire-y or like murdery.
I got similar vibes to My Little Bunny of a Sorcier from Half a Soul.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the same archetype, and this was meant to be a darker version, but somehow our Sorcier is darker than this guy, despite all of the murder and centuries of existence.
The murder. Honestly, though, he feels like he's supposed to be this like spooky, dark assassin, lives forever character, but he kind of just felt like a bunny. Yeah.
Yeah. Like Aladdin's genie going through a goth.
Yeah. Okay, you are coming in with these fucking one-liners, Jordan. Oh my god.
Pow pow.
So accurate. Pow pow. Oh my god, because that's exactly how I would describe like 100%. Where he's like kind of like 13-year-old rebelling for the first time.
Too many hoop earrings in the ear. Yeah, here we go. Let's do The Familiar. Leigh Bardugo. We'll get into it. Who's our heroine?
I don't know how to... Lucia?
Sure.
Luzia? Lucia?
We can call her Lucy.
Lucy? Lucy? Because I feel like she's like more evil than the other guy.
Self-serving?
Yeah, she has like the hunger in her, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's some characters that you're like, they're kind of flat, but she's like, she would not be afraid to kill you if she had to.
She would have been a way better, like, genie type figure than Saint Angel.
Hey, oh, that'd be kind of fun if they like it was
Flipped.
yeah,
And
huh?
that's kind of where the story was. We're getting ahead of ourselves, readers.
That's true. Yeah. Sorry. We're
Okay.
like digesting this.
Yeah, and it's been a while since we finished this book. It's been about a month or so. So
Mhm.
we're probably gonna skip a few portions, but it's probably a favor for you all.
Yeah, because it's chunky. So, during the Spanish Inquisition, right?
Yeah. If she did the historical research, that it seems like she did, I learned so much more that I actually didn't want to know about the Spanish Inquisition.
Same here. I was content kinda knowing that it was something that happened, and now I feel like I read a dissertation on it. And
Mhm.
based on her, what is it called in the end?
Author's
When you, like,
notes
give
or
yeah, she, cited a bunch of people that helped her with the research on this, so I think it was probably a little bit more, like, historical fantasy fiction than
This
I
is
don't know.
this might be a bit of a harsher take than is
Uh-oh.
warranted, but it feels like when Stephanie Meyer finished her entire Twilight series, and then she's like, "I'm gonna write The Host, and it's gonna be serious and science-y." It kinda feels like this is Shadow and Bone followed by, now I'm writing a real book."
Yeah, honestly, because I was thinking about this the other day. The plot of it kind of lays out the same as Shadow and Bone. Like, it has very similar themes, very similar, like, religious overtones, and the way the plot progresses is almost identical to
Mhm.
Shadow and Bone, but that was more fun.
Well, and maybe that will appeal to readers who like the more serious literature-esque style fantasies. Like if you
Mhm.
really like Juliet Marillier, I'd say this is probably more your speed than Shadow and Bone. But if you like the plot points of Shadow and Bone, here you go.
I mean, because I will say it was refreshing after so much, like, cheesy, not well edited, not well written
Mhm.
Kindle Unlimited. Spanish Inquisition, it said, "You can't make that fun."
No, we kind of get dropped into like true poverty with our
Mhm.
heroine Lucia. I don't
I don't
know,
know.
Lucy.
These make weird noises.
Yeah. So
We'll
she's a
go with Lucy.
housemaid.
Yeah,
Lucy.
Lucy. Yep.
She is a housemaid for a kind of down on their luck noble family or
Mhm,
noble husband and wife duo, and Lucy is also Jewish, and that's also a persecuted group during the Spanish
mhm.
Inquisition, which I didn't think I knew before.
I didn't know that either. Yeah.
I mean, that was interesting as well.
Yeah. I will say I did like her magic system in this because Lucia basically was, like, kinda taught when she was younger about her Jewish ancestry and taught these, like, phrases almost or, like, parables or metaphors or something
Mhm.
that have, like, magic power behind them. 'em. I'm trying to think of, like, one of them. 'Em. They're just, like, little phrases, and it kind of has some kind of meaning with, like, a puts dishes back together or unburns bread. And so she, like, kinda has magic, but in this very, like, householdy, witch kind of way.
It's a very complex take on it because what the phrases that she says are almost biblical, um,
Yeah.
and they're meant to be so broad that they can apply to, like, fixing a broken dish or fixing a house or fixing a wound, depending on how it's concentrated, and I don't think it's ever explicitly said what she actually says, but the way it's described, it sounds like she's speaking a mix of Hebrew, Greek, Latin, just a smattering of different ancient tongues, and that's why it
Mhm.
makes sense to no one but her.
It gives very, like, household witch, passed on knowledge from, like, mother to daughter, etcetera, and
Mhm.
it kinda makes sense because her aunt is living in the city with her, but she's kind of like a well-to-do mistress
Her aunt is
type.
a bitch.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
like
Oh my god, yeah, she's not a likable character.
yeah, like, and I mean, that's the purpose of her as a character. You kinda see, like, what she's driven by and how she takes care of and doesn't take care of Lucy, but, oh,
Mhm.
man, she just gets worse throughout the book.
'Cause she's basically been looking out for herself. Her name is Hualit?
Oh, yeah, that was a weird name.
I don't know, but she goes by her non-Jewish name, Catalina, and she's like a mistress to this super rich guy, and it kinda sucks because she's, like, constantly telling Lucia, like, "Don't try to aspire to more than just being a household maid," and it's like, "But you're fuck it, like, you have your own house and drink
Yeah.
wine all the time.
She's
Like, wait a second.
nice clothes, personal house, maids, and meanwhile, Lucy is, like, pulling water from the town well and sleeping on the floor and covered in soot, like, very Cinderella-esque, and
Yeah.
she's just supposed to be okay with it.
Yeah, it's like, "Wait a second,
Well, and we
feeling
kinda
a
learn
little."
that her aunt is very concerned that Lucy, with her magic, is going to reveal, like, their family connection because no one knows that they're related. So Lucy goes to visit her aunt occasionally to, like, check in, be like, "Hey, I'm still alive." That's it. And Lucy, for it seems like several years, has been using little tidbits of magic to make her life easier, which is I think the most significant one is the bread
Mhm.
scene, right?
'Cause, the lady of the house, her name's, like, Donna Valentina. I love her as a character, sidebar, but we can talk about Donna Valentina later,
There's a
but
lot to unpack with Valentina.
yeah, honestly. But, basically, like, she sees the bread is burned, and then all of a sudden it's not burned, and then she kinda has this, like, crisis of self of, like, "I swear to God I saw the bread, and then maybe this is some kind of prank," like, she's very self-conscious in her kind of, like, role as the lady of the house, and so she assumes that they're, like, trying to get one over on her. Kind of an odd thing to assume, but
Well, it kind of plays into Valentina's backstory, and this is kind of like a side note for this book. There is Lucy's perspective, and you kind of half get Valentina's perspective as a character. But
yeah.
for when I was reading it, I never felt fully connected to Valentina. Like, I think you're meant to, but
Yeah.
she's almost redeemable, but not enough to make her
Mhm.
want you to insert yourself into her as a character.
I feel like the way it's written, it's almost I mentioned it before, but, like, Shakespeare-y or, like, play-like, where you get
Mhm.
a different POV, but it's, like, a really short scene, and then you go back to, like, the main narrator or whatever. The way it's written is pretty interesting, and I don't know that I've read any books that have that, like, it'll be, like, 3 or 4 paragraphs in the other character's point of view and then back to the main character.
We saw that with Wild Magic in Tamora Pierce's books, but
Oh!
it's done at a much, I don't know, simpler, more
Yeah.
basic level that you don't even notice it. I think a lot of kids' books are written that way, so we're
Mhm.
more omniscient and you're getting a little bit of everything. This is another level.
Yeah, cause like, Donna Valentina too, like you said, she's almost redeemable because she's kind of a bitch in these, like, first, like, couple scenes, but you can tell she's acting that way out of, she strikes me as someone that's, like, super young. I can't
Yeah,
think of a way to describe her
maybe
other.
naive and depressed at the same time.
Yeah, immature, kind of unconscious, unsure of her station, even though she's
Mhm.
technically a lady. But basically, like, she feels crazy, and then she's like, "You know what? I don't think I'm crazy. Let me, like, test this." And we get the scene of her, like, ripping out a seam in one of her dresses, and then she gives it to Lucia, and she's like, "Help me get dressed." And then all of a sudden, there's no rip in it, and she's like, "You fucking witch."
Because, meanwhile, the Inquisition is going on hunting down witchcraft. However, miracles are allowed.
Yeah, because
So as
that
long
was a
as
fun dichotomy the whole time,
Yeah,
where it's
as long as you're doing magic in the name of God, blessed off, done.
honestly, I feel like that's just,
That's religion
all
in a
Christian
nutshell.
history.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fine if we, put a cover of Christianity on it.
Mhm. And
Yep.
Valentina is so her backstory is she married this kind of wealthy, handsome young dude, thought she was gonna have a great marriage and pop out some kiddos, and she can't get pregnant or hasn't been able to get pregnant, and her husband is becoming more and more distant from her, and so she's just trying to, I guess, be a good wife is kind of her role, but she feels consistently lacking. Yeah, and I think she's trying to seek out validation through being a good hostess, which is
Mhm.
where Lucia kind of fills in.
Yeah, because they don't have any money to really host any fancy dinners, and so she's trying to find, like, a way to compensate for that lack, and she's like, "Well, I have a witch in the family, so, you're gonna perform for us."
Okay, so we have 2 layers going on. We have Valentina's, like, her drivers and her backstory. We have Lucia's. We have the third one, the aunt. And then in
Mhm.
the background, I never felt like I understood the overarching politics of what was going on. because
Nope.
apparently the king, I forget his name, he's looking for like a new secretary, or he's looking to validate the status of his current secretary. And there is this competition amongst the nobility to identify like a miracle worker, something like that.
Because there's like also the Queen Elizabeth angle. Like they need someone to lead their armada against Queen Elizabeth because she like destroyed a bunch of their like ships or some shit.
Yeah, because
I
fighting the British Navy has gone well for so many people over the
Yeah.
century.
Honestly. Yeah, because like, isn't his name like Don Pedro or something is the
Yeah.
secretary, and he's like fallen out, and so they're hosting the competition to try to get because it feels exactly the same as Shadow and Bone. Like there's the competition, and then
There's a competition to find a miracle worker to, like, be, an icon for the nation. I think that's a very almost accurate description, but again, it's
I
been a
think
little
so.
while.
Yeah. There was a lot of history stuff going on, and y'all know that is not my strong suit.
I don't know. This book, you cannot skim it. There's no way, otherwise you're gonna be so very lost the entire time.
I will say though, I think the editors did a really good job on it because I felt like there wasn't fluff to get through. Like
Mm-mm.
every line felt like you should read
Necessary.
it. And, yeah,
Which
because there's some books that you're like, "What the fuck is all this?"
that's how you get, again, 700 fucking pages of Throne of Glass.
Yeah.
But this book is fairly short for a fantasy
Yeah.
romance. It's what, less than 300?
I think it's like 300-ish, 325. That's what I mean. Like the editor fucking put their whole pussy in this. Putting in work.
That might be the episode title right there.
I'm still obsessed with your fibrous.
We're not gonna make it through this book at this
No,
rate.
not at all. We are bringing the, immaturity ourselves
Yeah.
to this.
We gotta tone this book down a little bit, make it more
Yep. Oh,
palatable.
they have a dinner party. They pulled out all the stops. I think the husband didn't he say, like, they were gonna take out a loan or something to, like, host these dinners now that their fortunes have changed and they have this, like
Yeah,
it's somewhere along the line they said that.
they force Lucia to do, like, repair glass or something or turn the lights, and they do, like, a little mini test. I'm like, "Oh, alright." So then they host a dinner party, and meanwhile, Lucia is kinda having a crisis of self, like, "Do I reveal my magic and betray myself and my aunt and potentially die because the Inquisitors are gonna come for me? Sure, why not? Let's just do it."
Yep. 'Cause I will say, I think it kinda speaks to her desperation as a character that she's not really as afraid as she should be of, like, dying and getting caught.
No, and she's what I appreciated about this is because it is set up like a Cinderella story. She is
Mhm.
not content with her station. She is miserable and she wants to improve herself, but she doesn't quite know how, and this is her opportunity to do so.
'Cause, like, basically, that's the beginning is Donna Valentina is like, "Okay, this is my, like, rocket ship to the stars. You're gonna perform for everyone that comes to dinner." And then, obviously, because it's the middle of the Spanish Inquisition, eventually they invite the wrong person to dinner, and he's like, "Hmm, this feels a lot like witchcraft, not, miracle work." And he's the only one not clapping at the dinner table, and Lucia's like, "Well, it's time to go."
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else would make you panic other than like, "Oh, I'm gonna go on the rack. That's what's gonna happen after this."
Yep. I am about to get drowned in a river.
It's
But,
horrifying.
and as she's on her way out of dipping out of the, danger zone here, she stops at her aunt's house one last time, and, unfortunately, her aunt Catalina is, like, making her own power moves, and, her boy toy is there, and he's like, "You are the answer to my questions." And, our poor girl is again pulled as some pawn in somebody else's game.
There are so many characters introduced in the beginning here. It's kinda hard to keep them all straight. The boy
100%.
toy figure is way more intimidating, I think, than many of the others. He's,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
legit scary.
'Cause he's one of those characters that is, like, cold-blooded, like, calculating
Mhm,
in, like, a convincing way where it's like he is gonna do whatever he has to do to stay on top. Like,
mhm.
those are the scariest people because, like, you can kinda rely on that, but it's also like they have no emotions.
He's definitely he's Valentina's her aunt's patron, but the dynamic between Valentina and him, I don't remember his name. It feels like they're trying to be equal players and they're trying to use each other, but Valentina is always like a step behind.
I still think it's crazy because this is a scene later. But yeah, he like brings his wife out and he is totally like in love with her, but it's like you're also sleeping with some other chick and then you're also trying to get like buco points with like the king. Like this man has a lot going on.
Boy Toy is at the aunt's house with his sidekick, who is a very interesting looking man. And Lucia arrives and she's like, What's going on here, friends?"
Squeeze me. I'm trying to get out of town.
And the aunt's like, "No, you're not, because you're going to start doing some magic for me and my friend here." And Saint Angel is the sidekick, and he is described as this almost skeletal, tall, lean figure, white blonde hair. So all of our girls who are fans of Legolas, here you go.
Except the like emaciated version.
Yeah. He improves. Okay, just wait
Yeah.
for it.
He gets better.
And yeah, and he's kind of eyeballing Lucia like, okay, is this for real? Like, do I really have to handle this thing? And it's another test for Lucia to be like, all right, do some magic. And she does, like unwillingly.
I think she like brings some kind of fruit tree alive. And they're like, okay, not bad. You need to train, and Sand Angel is going to train you because there's a competition, and you're the only person I have left because my other like thing I was following up on got snatched by some other noble person. So you're it, and I'm not gonna lose.
Pretty much. Like, it's a competition with a bunch of wealthy people finding magic workers to perform for the king. Yeah. In short, that's what Lucia is for her aunt's boy toy. And Saint Angel is her trainer. And at the same time, he's also known as like an assassin type figure
Mhm.
as well around town. Like everyone knows he's going to kill someone eventually. That's just his job. And he's apparently been around for a long time.
They call him like the Scorpion or something.
Oh,
But
that's
I kind
right.
of yeah, I basically saw him as like the fixer for
Yeah.
the boy toy. Like, I have this problem, go sort it out. And he's like, God damn it, why do you have so many problems that I need to fix?
Mhm. And the dynamic between Boy Toy and Saint Angel is kind of weird because Saint Angel, like, has to listen to him. Like, Saint
Mhm.
Angel is this ominous, dark, all-powerful figure, except when it comes to this other dude who's like, "Alright, go fix my shit for me." Like, "Alright, man, I got it. Peace."
I like their backstory because we get that probably at like the 60-ish percent. But the way he's sized up, you would think that he's like a demon or some kind of like supernatural entity, but it's really just a deal gone wrong.
Pretty much.
Leave it at that.
Yeah, we'll kinda get into the backstory a little bit later, I think, because it is very interesting once you know it. Because your
Mhm.
first introduction to Saint Angel is, "You're creepy and powerful, and I don't wanna be in a room alone with you."
And I didn't realize too, this is kind of like a theme throughout, the scent of oranges. And in this scene, I didn't realize, but when we were writing the script, I saw it that the first time that they see each other, Lucia and Sin Angel, he remarks that it like smells like orange blossoms outside, and he like all of a sudden feels a little bit more alive. Because I did love that as like a little continuing plot point that he would get like more human as he interacts with her, and I'm like, oh, that's fine.
That's also kind of the theme of Lucia's magic is, like, repairing and fixing and bringing things to life.
I wonder if there's see, the whole time I was reading this, I'm like, I'm only getting probably like 10%
Mhm.
of the content here.
This is kind of a book that probably needs to be read 2 or 3 times just so you pick up on everything. Because I feel like on this first initial read, we are like, "Okay, we know what happens, but we don't necessarily know why everything happens."
There was 100% all kinds of like metaphor in there that wholly went over my head.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we leave off, where the patron boy toy guy is like, "All right, Saint Angel, you train Lucia." Ant's like, "All right, don't fuck this up because otherwise we gotta leave the country because we're gonna die." And
Mm.
Lucia's like, "Well, this is the only chance I have. I guess I'm gonna work with this scary corpse looking dude." And there we go. And there's a competition.
She gets fancy dresses made. they made the competition. The other 3 competitors, I think, are the Holy Child, which Freaky is a character that
Mm.
her whole everything she has going on.
Do we wanna talk about the tree scene? It's
Oh,
this.
where the guy gets, like, yeeted?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably because I feel like that's kind of an important part. Boy Toy is unhappy with the progress that Lucia is making because this is probably like 2 or 3 weeks after, and, he's like, "We're gonna up the stakes a little bit," and so he starts breaking Sand Angel's fingers right in front of her, and he's like, "You need to do something fucking impressive because 'cause I'm
He
not gonna
has
die."
his, like, bodyguard muscle man do it.
Oh, yeah, he has some, like, silly name too, and Lucia starts to panic and freaks out, and then she tries some magic that she is not really
Not ready
capable
for.
at that moment. Yeah,
And
and,
she blatters his
yep,
insides
yep.
everywhere.
This whole scene was, like, wasn't that bloody, it wasn't that serious until this point, and then she accidentally murders someone, and you're like, "Oh, this is, this
Well,
is a
and
lot."
what you kind of get leading up to this scene is Saint Angel and Lucia becoming closer as he's trying to teach her how to use her magic. And so it's this definite kind of not it's like an attraction, but with weird overtones. Like they're not
Yeah.
sure of each other, they're not sure where it's going, but like they both kind of feel protective towards each other. And
Mhm.
so Saint Angel's like, I got this, don't worry. I've been buried alive before. Like I can have my fingers broken. And Lucia's like, nah, not my man.
Please me?
Yeah, and
'Cause it
so
kinda gave me Darkling vibes,
mhm,
where they're both kind of like the downtrodden stray dogs of the world, and they've decided that they're gonna look out for each other.
yeah,
Um, that sounds weird, but that's the only way
it
I could
makes
really
sense.
describe
Like,
it.
that's perfect.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, so half a dead body downstairs and the other half in the room.
and Lucia almost dies as she's performance magic because her magic is not meant to, like, hurt things, and so Saint Angel, like, kind of brings her back. That's kind of like the big tone change, like, the scene that kind of
Yeah.
shifts everything forward a little bit is after that point, and we realize that Lucia is not just, like, a little, like, glass fixer. She can
Mhm.
wreak some havoc on a body.
'Cause I feel like this was probably the point where I feel like the plot kind of sped up and you're like, "Oh shit,
Mhm.
there's, like, stakes here."
Yeah.
'Cause before that, it was a bit like, "Okay, like, they're getting ready for this competition, cool, cool, cool," and then it's like, "Oh, fuck, okay, there's life or death."
Mhm.
I feel like this is when we get a little bit more about the aunt, her attempt almost at getting, like, a redemption, but, like, it's so self-centered still that Lucia sees through it, but basically, Lucia's, in bed recovering, and the aunt comes in, and she's like, "This is our chance, like, don't fuck it up, or, we just do this one thing, and then we can run off to Turkey, and we can be ourselves there, and, like, there's this, like, Jewish compound that I've been talking to, like, this is our way out, we can do it." And it was this interesting, like, attempt at showing, like, a redeemable side of her, but it still felt very, like, she was threatened almost of Lucia starting to come into some kind of, like, power or, like,
Mhm.
influence on her own, and she's like, how about let's, get out of here instead so I can, like, still be the one in charge of you," or, you know, I can't it
No,
read very weird.
it's definitely the aunt trying to exert her own power and influence on Lucia still because she doesn't have Lucia's magic, so she has to hold
Mm,
on to something. This was also the shift for Saint Angel because we do get glimmers of his perspective, and we know that he is using Lucia for his own purposes. We don't quite know why yet, but once she saves him, he's like, "Well, I kind of like her now, and now I feel conflicted. I'm still going to use her. However,
mm,
maybe there's a better way for both of us in the end."
mhm. 'Cause you definitely get this sort of tension within him that on the one hand, he just wants this over with so he can get whatever he's gonna get out of this deal, but he's also like, "Fuck, why do I like you?"
Yeah, and yeah, I love it because he's like, "She's not even that pretty," but
I know. It's like, "You douchebag."
yeah, but somehow she smells nice, so let's just keep this
Yep.
thing going.
Oh my god, that was, like, the first, like, moment interaction where I'm like, "Oh, I kind of like them as a couple,"
Mhm.
'cause they're basically at the La Casilla, which is where the competition is starting. All the competitors are there and they're talking off to the side. And he's like, "You need to stop wearing orange perfume." And she like looks at him like, "You think I can fucking afford perfume?
Wow,
Like, what
orange
are you
perfume.
smoking?"
Yeah.
And he has this like, struck dumb moment. And it's like, "Oh, I like you guys."
Well, and meanwhile, he's becoming less and less corpse-like and, like, looking
Hmm.
healthy and gaining weight, and, like, suddenly Lucia looks at him like, "Oh, you're an attractive man. That's a
Oh,
problem."
no. He's having his glow up.
Mhm. Everyone heals, Lucia's, like, wearing nice dresses, and then they go to the actual competition. I think that's a good kind of place for us to close out part 1. What do you
Yeah, I
think?
think this is like the end of the like 30%, 40% mark. And then we get the first competition tidbit, but that will be next
Yeah.
episode because there's a lot that happens.
I mean, I feel like we were bouncing around a little bit because there's so much to go through here, and it's impossible to do justice in even an hour,
Mhm.
much less,
Yeah,
one of our episodes.
honestly, because everything builds on itself too.
Mhm.
There's not like I will say with some other fantasy books, you could cut out some of the scenes and not miss the main plot development, but in this, there's so many interweaving threads that kind of produce something at the end that you're like, "Oh, we can't talk about this until we talk about this other thing that happened first,"
Mhm.
which makes
Exactly.
it fibrous. We're dealing with a whole fucking
I
plant right now. Like a giant weed in your backyard that you can't yank out.
I just imagine you've seen Land Before Time, right?
Yes.
Okay, Littlefoot just chomping on a leaf like, tasty, but my god, this fucking leaf is huge."
Yep, he's been chewing for like 45 minutes
Yeah.
now.
Mhm.
That is the familiar.
Yeah. Well, from our shelf to yours.
We'll see you on the next page. Hi, readers. If you'd like to help us pick our next book, send us a message on Instagram.
Or if you'd like to just listen, we post new episodes every Monday and Wednesday on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. Thanks for listening.
Bussin'.